All right, we're going to start with Mr. Arthur, and each of you have 2 minutes. So let us not waste any more time. And Mr. Arthur, here's your time.
Hi, my name is Arthur Huang. I represent a company called Miniwiz. We were there last year. Unfortunately, we can't be there. Just quickly, just to update what we have been doing for the during the pandemic, using trash to create structures that matters. Okay, so the 2020, we've been doing turnkey infrastructure for PPE recycling. So we are basically turning all the masks, protective gowns, hats, and all the hospital fabric, waste fabric, turning that into a new generation of PPE cloth or textile, so we can use for the next generation of medical protections. Also, we can turn into hospital building materials. Okay, and the next thing that we're doing for the COVID-19 crisis, we are turning recycled material into hospital wards. These are modular wards. That is actually being implemented. You will actually see 96 of these modular cars, I would say. And from all the material inside is recycled aluminum with antibacterial, antiviral coating, all the way to the plastic components, including some of the fabric and fibers that's directly take back from the old hospitals. So, and this is what we are working on to make sure that recycled material and the new generation of medical facilities can be upgraded with trash. So this is the highest level of what we call upcycling. And then we're continuing to automate our decentralized recycling system. So the latest one, hopefully coming in half a year, will be fully automated. So you throw in trash on one end, on the other end, it will directly come out with a product within 3 minutes. And this is linked to a lot of AI and 5G technology. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is interesting, a highest level of upcycle. Now, next we have Mr. Jirapat with us. You also have 2 minutes, would you please?
Hi. First of all, I would like to thank you, GC, for giving us this opportunity to share how we build houses and take care of customers with sustainability in mind. As a real estate developer, we know that we are in a good place to actually make the impact in terms of sustainability, but we wanted to start small. So in 2018, we set up a simple direction and objective by saying that we're going to reduce the CO2 emission from ourselves and from our customers by 2,120 tons for 3 years. But we actually achieved that in 1 year. So by 2019, at the end of the year, so we completed 1,917 tons. But we understand that we cannot do this alone. In terms of technologies, in terms of the full journey coverage, so we have started talking to like-minded corporations. Fulfilling your living through innovation with GC was one of the very earliest initiatives that we work with GC on turning the used plastic bottles into recyclable polyethylene threads. All right, so this thread has got interesting characteristics like water, oil, or dust proof, and also is gentle on children as well. With that polyester threads, we also work with 2 more partners in home decoration and furniture, which is Pasaya and SB Furnitures, turning those threads into actual furniture and decoration that earth care. So curtains, sofa, pillows were made of those threads. And we use those furnitures in our real 32 show units since then. Thank you, Kap.
Thank you so much. So using recycle and upcycle products in most of the Sansiri project. Next would be Mr. Nitin, also 2 minutes.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Firstly, thank you for the invitation to speak at this August forum, and really thanks for, I guess, having a conversation on this important topic. Let me quickly introduce Procter Gamble to everybody. So we're a company which is 183 years young. Started off as a candle maker in Ohio in the United States. And over a period of time, it has become the largest fast-moving consumer goods company in the world. In Thailand, we've been around for over 33 years in this country. We make products which are really leading brands, brands that you may be familiar with, leading in the category, daily use products that are of superior value, but something that each of us uses in our daily lives. And what we have learned is consumers expect not just superior products, but they also expect us to solve some of the problems of the world. And that's the new normal. That's what's expected of us. And that's what we are kind of striving to design for. One of the key areas for us as we work through this is we don't just need force for growth. We need to be a force for good as well. Accordingly, a lot of our focus is on making sure we make a difference to societies we live in. And in particular, as regards the environment, our focus is on 3 key areas: climate, water, and waste. So I'll be glad to talk a little bit more specifics around what we are doing in that space. But these are the 3 that we have had as a big focus on sustainability. So thank you for your time and look forward to having the conversation with the rest of the folks.
So it's the focus sustainability, having 3 issues: climate, water, and waste, and that is our mission. Well, thank you very much, because those are very great and wonderful ideas that I'm pretty sure that will inspire all of you here. And now we're going to have some more questions to all of you. The first questions we will have is for Mr. Arthur, and that is, in your opinion, how importance of the circular economy is during the new normal situations. For this question, you have 3 minutes, Mr. Arthur.อันนี้จะเป็นส่วนของการถามคำถาม Mr. Arthur นะคะเดี๋ยวเรายังอยู่กับคุณ Arthur อยู่ใช่ไหมคะ Do we still have Mr. Arthur with us? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
can
perfect.
You hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Did you heard my question? Would you like me to repeat it?
Yes, I heard your questions very well.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, it's even more critical as we are more worried about personal safety and personal hygiene. This issue is going to be worse because if single use is the only way for us to have clean, safe products delivered to us, I think we might even have a greater environmental problem in the long run. So I think the idea of decentralization of recycling is becoming more important. So we are trying to do that with the hospital, as that is one of the biggest ways that's coming online during this pandemic. In the next 5 years, you can imagine there's a lot of preventive measure and personal hygiene issues that we all have to address. So there's a lot of single use that's actually being developed or coming online to support that. So we want to be as quickly reactive as possible to be able to turn most of these waste into new generation of products or building blocks for any long-term durable infrastructure. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Mr. Arthur, turning the waste into new generation of products. Next would be the question for Kun Jirapat, Kun Nitin, and Kun Patiparn. Please share what and how are your business strategies and goals towards sustainability and circular economy. Kun Jirapat, you also have 3 minutes.
Of course. Thank you for the question. I guess since we have a success in reducing the CO2 emission in our first campaign called a Green Mission, we have actually leveled up the mission and changed the name to Sansiri Sustainability 2020. And then we actually focus on 4 key areas, be it green energy mobility, waste management, green space, and healthy living. I'm going to go through each of them very quickly. In terms of waste management, one of the initiatives that we have done was a program called Waste to Worth. So basically, this is a program that we wish to work with our 120,000 customers out there to turn their recyclable waste into something worthwhile, right? So our goal is to have 100 kilograms of recyclable waste from our 100 projects in 1 year. So that, again, we are not doing that alone. So we are working with our partner. This time around is Coca-Cola Coke. So we work with Coke in a campaign called Coke Collects and piloting in 6 projects in our T77 community. But before that, because we just jump into the program directly, we wanted to understand what is the drive, what is the prohibitance of people sorting the waste. So we work with the economy faculty of Chulalongkorn and also Coca-Cola to actually study the consumer behavior in terms of waste sorting. So we got a good insight from the study saying that people don't want to sort their waste simply of 2 things. The first one, it is too complicated, and the second one is too difficult. With that insight, so we actually came back and designed our new bins. So instead of many bins, so we reduced it into 4 bins. They are transparent. So everyone who go in front of the bins know exactly what is inside. So the chance of putting things mistakenly into the bins is reduced. So we even tell our worker to actually, when you empty the bin, just leave part of the bottles back into the bin, just to make sure that people always see something inside the bin, right? So with that, we achieved 120 kilograms for 114 projects in Sansiri. And in this year onwards, we actually deploy the new type of bins for all the projects that we produce, right? The paper as well. So we're working with SG Packaging to make sure that used paper from our office and from our customers are treated and recycled properly. Green space. The biggest initiative on green space is called Backyard. So we started off with our office, our projects, and lastly, the yet to be developed land banks, one in our T77 community and the one in Hua Hin. The idea is to work with our customers to actually grow organic vegetables once they're harvestable. So we share those vegetables back to the customers and also the neighborhoods. In terms of energy, we have been deploying solar rooftop on our factory, on our properties, and in our communities, because there are a few communities, a few buildings in the same vicinity. So we try to do P2P blockchain electricity trading between those buildings as well. So it was mentioned in World Economic Forum this year as well. Not just the mature technology, Siri Ventures, which is investment arm of Sansiri, also invested in other clean energy. This one you see on the screen is the residential wind turbine that they actually invested in, and we're trying on a few of our projects to see if wind energy is working in Thailand or not. This one is self-sustained smart pole. So it takes the energy from wind and solar and then produces lights, CCTV camera, and a lot more. In terms of awareness, so we started to deploy smart meter for electricity and water in some of our projects. We feed that information to the application used by our customers directly. Last but not least, healthy living. So we actually started from the design, how to make our houses, our condominiums more livable, with less energy from the design ground up, how to make sure that the wind flows towards the properties nicely. So basically, those are the strategy and the direction that we are going.
Thank you so much. So many projects and strategies, but one of the great examples is, as you can see, is the waste management by designing new bins. And I like the idea of leaving some of the cans and bottles in the trash can so that people can see it. Now, next, I would like to move along to Nitin. What about Procter & Gamble?
So I think for us as a company, one of the big declarations we made globally is our idea of Ambition 2030. And it straddles really all the components we touch. The first is the brands. So our leading brands, whether it be fabric enhancers like Downy, hair care products like Pantene or Head & Shoulders, have all made a commitment to go to 100% recyclable or reusable plastic by 2030. More than that, as we look at it, our brands have a role even today, because some of these are long ambitions. There are roles even within today to focus on how we can reduce water consumption, how we can reduce wastage by concentrate versus dilutes, by focusing on reducing the amount of heat that you need to wash your laundry and stuff like that. If you look at our supply chain, we are committed to reducing the amount of electricity that we use and the greenhouse emissions that come out of our factories. And again, there is strong strides we made over the past years in this, and we will continue to kind of go after this area. On society, again, the larger area that our brands play, we touch 5 billion consumers. Our role will be to educate consumers so that they understand what is recycling, why recycling is useful, and how it fits into their daily lives, because they want to continue with their daily lives without impact. And our brands need to play a role with that. And lastly is our incentive system, educating our own employees so they understand what's needed. But more importantly, what's going to be the difference and how their careers and their reward systems are going to be geared towards more sustainable solutions versus life as usual. If I look at specifics, since 2016, we've reduced our greenhouse emissions by 29% in Thailand. Water is down 30% since 2014 in our factories here. 2018, we went zero waste to landfill. So as a factory, we do no longer have any waste going to landfill, and thus there is no leakage to the ocean. It's a small step, but it's an important step as we make the journey towards Ambition 2030. The next part of this equation is really how do we reduce, reuse, recycle? And a lot of the effort is going into understanding how each step of the supply chain works. Today, let's start with the consumer. Consumers very much used to the idea of use and throw. Getting them used to the idea of use and recycle is an important first step. Let's assume they recycle. Where do they recycle? So getting our retailers to offer points where consumers can return products becomes the second important next step in this equation. Let's assume retailers take that back. How do you have a recycle chain? Because there needs to be value for people to be recycling this plastic and converting that into something valuable. And today there isn't any scalable solution in Thailand for that. There are some elements starting up, but the kind of volumes that we need as a company and many companies need requires an industrial grade solution where people make money out of recycling. That is a solution we're working with the industry. Lastly, once we got all of that, we need to make sure that we are obviously regular customers of this technology coming into our stream. This is one of the elements that we are working on. You can see some of the examples of how our products have started to convert fully into stuff which is coming out of the oceans, plastic waste being converted. We've worked with GC team actually to create a house made out of waste that we picked out from the rivers and from oceans in Thailand. The next part is really focused on making sure that ideally none of our waste goes into the ocean. So as part of our Ambition 2030, we are going to work to find solutions so no plastic waste gets into the ocean. We are working with partners to figure out ways in which first we reduce, in some cases we collect back, and ideally none of it winds up in the environment in the first place, even if it's recyclable. In this regard, we've actually created the Alliance for Plastic Waste. working with many of our partners and many of our other companies in this space to be able to work so that no PNG packaging winds up in the environment. Lastly, what we want to do is we want to leave a lot of the society will, as it grows, will have a lot of pressures. Water is one key one. Water shortage we foresee will be a problem of the future. Many of our products use water heavily. How do we make sure that our plants are not emitting greenhouse gases? And how do we make sure our water is sustainable is key to us. So we are moving now towards getting a lot of our electricity to be solar. We're getting confirmation on circular economies attached to that. And on water, we are getting to a place where we're trying to figure out ways to reduce water in every product that we use. I have one video which I'd like to share to just show an example of something that's coming in the future. It's long time away, but it is something that's available today in some of the markets to start testing, where we eliminate water storage, moving in all of our products. So if you can play the video, please.
Every year, it takes 1 million plastic bottles and 12 million pounds of CO2 from 100,000 trucks to ship 800 million gallons of water and millions of everyday products. So we can shower 4 billion times and do 6 billion loads of laundry. Traveling 73 million miles to bring 800 million gallons to our stores and homes where we already have water. It takes rethinking everything, with 10 years of research and over 30 patents. It takes a thin 2-inch swatch. It takes removing all the unnecessary ingredients, eliminating 100% of the water, reducing 80% of the weight, and giving you 70% more space in biodegradable bamboo packaging. Spun layer by layer that lathers and transforms when you introduce it to water. As effective as heavy water-based products, but it only takes one little swatch to wash all of this, and these, this, and this. Simple, powerful clean for your home and body. Take on a world of waste with DS3. 80% less weight, 70% less space, and 75% less emissions. DS3. Enlighten Clean. Enlighten your personal care and laundry today. Support our Indiegogo launch, and together we begin making a difference.
Wow. I mean, as a consumer myself, I would definitely choose the brands that is eco-friendly. That's very wonderful. Next, we're going to move along to Kun Patiparn, in which, before you answer the question, I believe that you have some presentation to offer us. Would you please?
Okay. PTTGC, actually, we are petrochemical producers, and somehow all the plastics, maybe half of the plastic used in Thailand, producing from PTGCs, and actually we are focusing in environmental friendly products, and it's always be our policy since inceptions maybe 35 years ago, and therefore we are always setting up our goal of business based on a sustainability concepts, where we believe that successful of business not only based on only economic returns, but we also focusing on environmental impacts and also the society at large as well. And the targets of PTGCs, then therefore we always focusing on philosophy of business decision making, business operation, business investments on better efficiency, less waste, and better environmental impacts. 3R's approach is always be our approach that we normally utilize things. For example, the first R, as we used to know about, is reduce. Actually, PTTGC used to produce 150,000 tons of a single-use grade plastics. Now we already set the targets to reduce it to 0 in the next actually it's already been in plan for 2 years already, and therefore we have 3 years to go to reducing from 150,000 to zero, changing from single-use plastics to a more durable ones, right? And for another reduce is, of course, everybody knows that we target to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and the target is 20% reductions in the year 2030. We also setting up the target of reducing GHG intensity. We target to reduce it by 50% in the year 2050. But it's quite tough to achieve, you know. But it can be able to achieve through our business decisions, which means that in the future, if we invest, we will invest further into downstreams, where business operations will generate less and less CO2 emissions. And that is the way to reduce CO2 intensities. In order to reduce the currently operates and currently generating CO2 or greenhouse gas, we also employ conventional ways. Example, improve yield, improve energy efficiencies. But if we're also looking forward to new technologies, for example, the new technology called plasma enhanced melter, where it can burn our industrial waste at 10,000 degrees Celsius. And at that heat, it generates zero emissions, right? Or we study about a microchannel heat exchanger. This one can be, the size will be 3 times smaller than the conventional heat exchangers, where the efficiency is 300% higher. So those are the way to improve greenhouse gas emission of PTGCs. Second R is reuse. The easiest way to look at the reuse is the water. For PTGC, we use a lot of water, 150,000 cubic meters per day. At this moment, we already achieve. We're having our internal generation water at the amount of 50,000 cubic meters per day, 1/3 of the water that we require, which means that we less dependence on public water. And of 50,000 cubic meters, 10,000 of it's coming from wastewater recycle. We adding a lot of wastewater reverse osmosis machine into our operations, and this one will be increased in the future. For the recycle, actually, we are not focusing only on PET operations. Actually, we're looking for rolling out into social at large. Maybe we can join hands together with PNGs. We try to doing our ecosystems of recycle activities, starting from drop points, starting from waste separations, waste collections, and recycle. PTGC already invest in a mechanical recycle plants at the capacity of 30,000 tons per year of our PET and 50,000 tons per year of polyethylenes, right? And we also trying to provide awareness to everybody, people at large, on the values of the recycled plastics. Because people normally, they know that recycle cannot generate a good quality product as the fresh one. But actually, that's why we introducing a project called upcycling product into the markets, showing them that sometimes when we collect it right, when we convert it right, it can yield a better product and at a better values, right? And this is the goal of PTGC.
That is our goal. So from what I've understand is that GC target is we are really trying very hard to make a difference into the world, and we also value the recycle. That's what's most important right now, is that we need to recycle everything. Now we're going to have the next question for all of you, and that is, what is a practical advice you would give regarding collaboration towards business ecosystem enhancement? We'll start with Kun Arthur, and also we have 3 minutes as well. Once again, what is a practical advice you would give regarding collaboration towards business ecosystem enhancement?
In order for people to see the business opportunity and how much people need to invest in it, I think the most basic thing is for people to see it in their face. There's no BS, it's just no presentation, it's just straight. To take a waste, for example, this is actually directly from mask. So directly with the whole process in front of your face, you can directly take this within 3 minutes, it turns into a flower pot, for example. And that's the idea. I think that's the first phase that it needs to get as many community involved. So then all of a sudden they see value in a waste mask or waste packaging material. So I see that as the most important issue at first. Of course, at the same time, like many of the speakers just mentioned, we need to develop much larger scale solutions. Get away from all the packaging, get away from all the single use. We ship only what is essential, okay? Or we ship, or we have degradable material, for example, that can truly be degraded. Of course, and that takes a much larger scale of investment to be able to do that, and it takes time. So I think the first phase is to get people to think twice about single use and understand the value of that material in single use, and compact them as much as possible into a usable resources for the future. So in general, that's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now next to Kun Jirapat, what would be your advice?
All right. I'm not sure whether this is advice, but I would say it is direction that we believe. So I guess the first one would be starting from ourselves and our neighbors. So start small. There's nothing too small when it comes to saving the earth. So we started off, for example, I give you one example. We used to stay in a high-rise office building. There's many floors. So there was a little competition between that at the end of the day, which floor has got the least count of plastic cups. So we have run that for months, and each floor is actually bragging to each other floor that today I was winner because I've got 0 cup counts on my floor. Or when we talk about construction site, something this small happens. Like we set up a program that construction workers can bring recyclable bottles and exchange with smaller things like eggs or fish sauce. So this is something resonate to them. It's small, it's now. The next one I would say is partners. Let's say, for example, we are a developer. We are not actually covering the whole journey of recycling. So we are just part of it. Then we need to work with a lot of partners, to make sure that whatever we do at the beginning, we are the source to make sure that whatever we produce is treated properly. So being a partner is that if we run fast, if we run alone, we can run fast. But if we want to run far, we need to run with partners. All right? And the third one that we would like to leave it here is technology. So we actually have been looking at technology, mature technology for a while. But I'm super certain that a lot of startups out there, they have got technology that could help big companies like us to treat our waste, to make sure that we reduce energy usage properly. So there are a lot of startups in this area out there. So my ask to you guys is to give them a chance to have a pilot, to have a POCs with them. And last but not least, understanding customers. So I've been reading a few articles about the gap between intention and action. So a lot of people have intention to do good in terms of sustainability, but when it comes to action, there's a lot less. So how do we help to fill the gap? There's a study that if you want someone to put a solar rooftop on your roof, that means it is highly likely that you do it if your neighbor actually does it. So this is something that we need to understand. For example, we deal with 120, not deal, we are taking care of 120,000 customers living in our properties. So this is a basic understanding we need to understand in order to make them putting the solar on their roof. Right.
Okay. Well, always start with ourselves, and of course, you can always start with something small for a bit better, bigger things. Right. Next, Kun Nitin, anything else you'd like to advise us?
Again, for me, it was inspiring to hear the stories, whether it be Arthur, whether it be the Sansiri story or the GC story. All of us are working at the same problem. It's a big problem in all our different ways. And so my big piece is it's never going to be one person solving. There are no heroes in this. It is going to be us working together, connecting, finding connections, finding areas where we can collaborate together. It starts with the government, in some cases, working with us on what are the right rules, what are the right industry norms, what are the ways in which we incentivize the system of recycling to start up. In some cases, it is collaborating with who we would consider competitors. A great example is what we've done here, which was an alliance locally in Thailand, where we've worked with several of our peers, whether it be Unilever, Kao, Nestle, PepsiCo, to be able to start an ecosystem to kind of reduce the amount of plastic going into the environment. So we are funding in several cases across Southeast Asia, a 100 million fund together in order to ensure that we are able to get ecosystems or startups to be able to find solutions for waste in water. We have a global tie-up with many CEOs across companies and Procter Gamble, trying to figure out an alliance for ending plastic waste so that we don't wind up polluting the environment further. These are all ecosystems. It is not one company that will solve this knotty problem together. I have one practical example from Thailand, which was actually with GC. So this was an example of where our employees, if you remember the 4 pillars we had, our employees actually got together, took the waste from our plant and from clearing up a river that we went to pick up a lot of the plastic waste. This was around 4.5 tons of plastic waste we got back. Working with GC, we actually converted that into recycled material. So a lot of the upscaling that you were talking about. And we actually made a house with Habitat for Humanity, an NGO, in order to be able to give it to somebody. And we partnered with the government to find the appropriate recipient. And this is the recipient we just donated the house to, where this person was actually having his family live separately from him because they needed to work in one place where the daughter had to study in some other place and they didn't have a house to stay in. So it's a great example of where brands can come together with society, make a difference in the society, but working with the government, working with NGOs, working with partners in order, and our employees, in order to make a difference. It's a small example, but if we can scale this up, we think we can make a huge difference to what the environment portrays.
Couldn't agree more. What's important is what we can do to make a difference to the world. As well as to Kun Patiparn, what would be your advice?
I think it's same as everybody's. Recycle the whole ecosystems cannot be done by one person. It requires a lot of coordination, cooperations among everybody, which including the government entities. Starting from our dreams to creating ecosystems, starting by having drop points, separations, segregation, recycle, and the use of recycled products. Let's imagine if at the first step, at the drop points, people get confused. For example, have someone considered how many slots into each drop point. We can see some places they use 3 slots. Some places they have 4, 5, or even 6. Or even we have 3 slots in each drop point. How are we going to separate it? Standardizations. I mean, everything spread the same. For me, sometimes I'm confused. They have one slot say recyclables. Second slot say non-recyclable. And the third slot, Arthur. For me, everything is recycled. Everything is recyclable. So it's confused, right? So the first one is standardizations. Second one, when we are already determined the number of slots, how about the trash bag underneath that slot? If we use the same color, eventually it's pulled together once again. How come? Why not we just say one bag colors for one slot, so that when we do segregations, when we do separation at second, third stage, it will be easily. Second thing, I forgot to say that PTGC also not producing and not focusing on recycle activities. We also providing alternatives. We also having biocompostable plastics, where it can be composed to nature within 180 or 365 days. But if we cannot make its difference between biocompostable plastic and recyclable plastics, once we put into the slots, it gets together and very difficult to physically separating it. Why someone say for the PLA bottle, which is biocompostable, they use only one color, blue, because they don't concern about the recycled color. Use is blue, and the rest use another color. So by doing that, we can be able to separating it, all right? And as I said, along the ecosystem value chains, there are many operations. Waste from the dot points into logistics, into the local hubs. Separation, second separations, and then transport into regional hubs. Ship it and send it to recycle plants. It requires a lot of operations, and they need some support. And at this moment, we are in the process of reducing CO2 emission, and government is trying to issue new legislations. I think the legislation should allow people who participate into those ecosystems to gain some credits out of it, right? Because someone who cannot reduce CO2 emission by their own, because they install a very old machines, they can sponsor those value chains of ecosystem, and they can get carbon credits back, things like that. This is what I think is going to help things rolling out smoothly.
Thank you so much. Well, from what I've heard, in order to achieve this circular economy, we need to try to get as many community to involve. We need to find connections. We need to see the value of recycling products. And in conclusion, like Kun Patiparn said, and Kun Arthur mentioned, everything is recycled. So thank you. Thank you everyone for sharing these wonderful ideas, and in order to make this tomorrow together a better place for all of us. ขอเสียงปรบมือนะคะ Another round of applause for all of our speakers. And thank you to Mr. Arthur as well for joining us. Thank you.